So if we stripped away all of the titles and roles that you have, podcast host, producer, creator,
construction
author,
extraordinaire,
sold a company,
Sure.
scaled, sold, mom, like what embodies you at your core?
Just Anne. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know who that little girl was for a long time. I always had a relationship with alcohol. Alcohol and I were always very good friends. And I was the fun drunk, right?
And the hot one.
Fun drunk.
Fun drunk. You're winning.
Yeah, it's like we're going to strip clubs. Oh, I got drinks. It's totally fine. Everything's amazing. I didn't realize that I was drinking to numb all the shit. After I got sober, it started this kind of journey of figuring Anne out. I have done all of these steps to clean out the gunk, to be able to hold space for people. I've done all the things. I've touched all the burners on the stove. And I'm not afraid to talk about the messy stuff. It's like, yeah, I did that. People are able to relate to it and say like, God, my life was messy like that too. Whatever it looked like.
Welcome back to this episode of Behind the Success. Today we are joined by the lovely Anne Karber. Anne Karber is the author of The Life Hack Playbook, the creator and host of the Let's Get Naked podcast, a show that peels back the layers on vulnerability and invites guests to open up about their most authentic, unfiltered experiences. Through raw, heartfelt conversations, Anne explores the strength found in exposing our true selves, the messy, the beautiful, human parts we all often hide. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
We are so excited to jump into your backstory. Take us back to the very beginning, kind of what shaped you growing up. We know you are currently a podcast host and an author, but you also come with a construction business.
So I was born in South Dakota to farmer rancher, parents. And I was one of 5 kids. I'm the direct middle. I have 2 older sisters and 2 younger brothers. And so I'm the epitome of the middle child, the loud, obnoxious, need attention, all of the things. We moved to Colorado when I was 9. That was a whole big thing because we were had the opposite of money growing up. And it was even worse when we went to Colorado because my dad was just doing everything he could to put, food on the table kind of thing. He had been a rancher his whole life. And so that was obviously a whole struggle. I remember growing up being embarrassed about how poor we were, because it was food bank poor. It was, WIC poor. It was all of that kind of stuff. And nothing against my parents. They did the best that they could. But it was a defining thing for me. As I was getting to the point of getting out of the house, which was at 16 years old, I kind of had not a great relationship with my parents. They were very organized religion. And for me, that felt like it just contradicted every fiber of my being. And I think everyone should be into whatever they want to, but I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. I think there's a lot of rules with religion that just felt like doesn't feel right to me. So that, and I was very rebellious. I had gone through quite a bit of trauma when I was a child, and they didn't understand how to deal with that, and I didn't have a relationship with them. And so it was like, I'm out of here kind of thing. I got married and had my first kid I got married when I was 18, had my first daughter when I was 19, moved to Arizona when I was 18, before I even got pregnant, moved to Arizona with man number 1 who, he was a means to an end for me. It wasn't like I was ever like, oh, he's so dreamy. It was like I can get out of my parents' house because he was a couple years older than I was. When I moved down to Arizona, it was, getting into the workforce, and it was, okay, what's the next job? What's the next job? What's the next job? Because I always had that drive and that hustle. Money for me was freedom, which has equated to an unhealthy relationship with money for me as a later in life that I didn't realize. I just always thought, okay, if I could provide for my kids, if I can, the big goal for me was being able to afford to put them through college. And that was going to be my measure of success, right? If I could say yes to them for all of the things. And so I always just wanted whatever the next job was. I fell in love with construction. I was working for an architect's office, and I just fell in love with going to the job site during the day and kind of sitting and watching the logistics, right? For whatever reason in life, logistics are what does it for me. And so, like the game of Tetris and like who's going to come here, what's going to happen here. But that always just did it for me. And so for me, it was always the hustle. It was, okay, if I'm a project coordinator, what's the next step up? Okay, project engineer. Okay, what's this next step up? Project manager. And so I just kept doing that as I went. In 2004, 2005, my second husband and current husband decided that we were going to start our own construction business because he was also in construction, and it just kind of didn't make sense to be.
Is that how y'all met?
Yes. So his father owned a mechanical company in the Valley. And so we met there. And it was when I was kind of in my early 20s. I had 2 little girls at that point. We were all kind of palling around together, all of the different people that were in that age bracket. And so we ended up starting our construction company and started from nothing. It was something where it was like I had a bonus from the construction company that I was working at. He had, some shares of an ESOP from his company. We put 10 grand together and started what ended up being a really amazing mechanical insulation company in the Valley. So we ran that for 15 years and then sold that. I always had side hustles on the side of that, right? So yes, running the business, but then it was like, okay, the VRBO market was huge back in like 2015 or whatever it was. And so we had a house that was nicer and big and kind of had this amazing backyard. And so it was like, okay, we're going to do that. And we ended up with a couple of those. And then it was, okay, I'm going to start commercial, flipping commercial houses or commercial properties or residential flips or that kind of stuff. So I was doing that on top of everything else because it was just always about that hustle and that grind.
Well, at least those all kind of fit together.
Yeah, exactly. Construction, commercial property, like all of the things.
It flows.
It did. And so it was just always like, what's the next thing that I can do? Our company was something where, we started from nothing. And to be able to look at something that we were able to turn into and then sell and has continued to go on and grow, I've been looking back at that. What a sense of pride that is to be able to start something from nothing in a construction industry also where, women are not the norm, right?
No.
And so even when we had the company, it was always like, Cameron would have people that would call and it would say, they would think like I was the receptionist. I was like, nah, bitch, I'm the president. Like, this is my company. Cameron handled sales and estimating and I handled operations and all of the things in the office. We grew it from the 2 of us to 60 employees at its height. It was just funny. There was a big part of that I had to work through to get over because I always had a chip on my shoulder that it was like,
for sure,
like he's the one that has the name on the business and I'm just getting the coffee. That never sat right with me. And I spent a lot of years feeling defensive about that. Now I just don't give a fuck, right? Like, think whatever you want to. It doesn't matter. I know my truth. I know who's,
Talk to me about building a business from zero with your spouse. Like, yeah. I love my husband. I got married later in life. So unlike Kendall, she works with her husband. I think we would kill each other.
Yeah.
So I want to know like the reality of like doing that from, hey, we're both going in on this and then getting to a point where you can sell. Amazing. But was it like easy peasy?
No. It was at first, I think it was a lot of the novelty of it and that was fun. But it gets to the point where my personality, for anyone listening that doesn't know, I'm a ball buster. And so the last thing you want to do is get your balls busted by me all day and then come home at night and be my strong man. Right. Yeah. That's a hard shift for a guy to do. Right. And so, he did the best that he could for how long he could, but it got to where it was like, either I'm going or you're going. And it ended up being like, how is that fair? Because it's 50% me. It isn't like I'm getting you a coffee and answering your phones. This is my business. This is your business. So we just got to the point where it was like, let's sell it and go on and do other things. And that was the right fit.
And that was the saving part for your marriage then.
It was. Because
your dynamics completely shifted.
Yeah. And I had gotten sober a couple of years before we ended up selling it. And at that point, it was like, we need to do something different. We need to have this be something where we're working towards whatever the exit strategy looks like, because we realized we don't want to work together, and we still do in some capacity. He still has a fabrication shop, and I help out with different stuff where he needs it with that. And there's some other stuff where we do still overlap. But it's really hard to work with your spouse, especially if you want to be amazing on the personal side. We always said like, we can either like be crushing it professionally or be like really tied into each other personally, but it's not one of the, it's one of the other. It's not both of those things. It never was both for us. So it was like,
you got to like pick or choose, like
Yeah.
which role are we in
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah.
And
And I
that's kind
wanted,
of how I expected that
yes.
it would be if I were to do that.
Yes.
And I just don't think that would go well.
Right. I mean, can you imagine having your partner come and like you're doing something, he's like, maybe you should try it this way. And it's like, maybe you should go fuck yourself.
Oh,
You know, I mean, that's 100%. Right. So it's like, there's a whole thing there that, you know, the dynamic of that is really hard. People that can do it successfully. And I think we did, right? We worked together for 15 years. Yeah. And then we went on and did other things together as well. But it just keeps reiterating to me, I want to do my own thing. I want him to be able to do his own thing. Yes, we can collaborate on stuff, but I don't want that to be like, I'm waiting for him to do tasks that are holding me up, because then it makes me a bitch. And then when he comes home and he's eating dinner and I'm like, you still didn't do that thing for me, whatever. Like, you just don't want to drag that stuff home.
Absolutely. And it's like, I feel like a little bit of human nature to be inclined to do that, right?
Yes,
Like there's no separation of like work and relaxation and like all of that.
Yeah. And for me, I would much rather have it be where we're like super tied in personally, where you know, the business part of it can be like
you can have other business partners.
There's always another business.
100 different husbands.
Sure.
I mean, you probably could, but like that's going to be exhausting.
For me. Right, exactly. Two's fine.
Okay, before we change topics,
yes,
your goal when you were being as like ball buster as you could, getting through the career thing, putting all of that anxiety and stress of growing up poor into your future of I will not be poor. Did you hit the point where I can put my kids through college, no problems?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that a really happy moment? Or did you not even realize it?
Did it not hit you how you were expecting it to?
No, because the problem is you keep moving the goalpost. You know, I got to this point where it was like, if you had asked us when we were in the thick of it, it was like, when will it be enough? And the answer was always more. And so I sacrificed my family and my kids because I was a workaholic. That was a really easy way for me to numb. You know, one of the things that I talk about on the podcast is we all have our numb of choice. Mine happened to be alcohol and work because I got my value from really being able to produce. And so I did that well. I produced really, really well, both in my main gig, in my side hustles, in whatever that looked like. I produced really well. But then that goalpost kept moving, you know, so I get to this place and I have this fancy house in Paradise Valley and this amazing car and like all of the shit. And I've never been more miserable in my life because that's what it looks like. You know, it's like your kids don't know who you are because you're not plugged into them and you have nannies that are raising them and all of the things. I didn't have my priorities right for what looking back. I mean, it is what it is. That's part of my story. But
we've actually heard that from a lot of the women that we've had on this show saying on the exterior, everyone looking at me was like, oh my gosh, like she was on the cover of magazines. She did this, she did that, like all these cool accolades. But on the inside, she's like, my ego felt really good. Gal we just were speaking with, she's like, but internally I was miserable.
Yeah.
And so there can be a really large disconnect from the outward projection to like the inward reality. So you went through many things that we'll let you share, but how do you now kind of try and reconcile the outward and the inward?
You know, for me now, they're just the same. You know, I think you're absolutely right. The ego in that situation got really out of control because when people are telling you how amazing you are, it's like,
you want to believe it.
I am amazing, you know, but you can actually look at that you can come from a soul perspective on that and receive that from your soul, which I hadn't done, which is kind of funny. I look at that and it's like my ego and my soul were so separate that they didn't even know each other, you know, and I think your ego is supposed to kind of trail behind your soul because obviously you're not going to not have an ego. Everyone has an ego, but everyone's ego in nowadays society is so inflated and so out of control that they don't even realize that their soul is part of the equation. So for me, I had my ego on a healthy diet of oh, you're so amazing and all of the things. I mean, imagine working in construction and it's like dudes tell you all the time, like it's just been, you girls are beautiful, you understand. If you were around dudes all the time and you were this trucker mouth that doesn't get embarrassed about stuff or like whatever, it was a dream to be on the job sites, right? And I was just right in there with them. And so it fed my ego like crazy. That's literally not the right thing. So, you know, having it now where I lead with my soul, my ego is kind of tails around behind in the back. I have to be careful about that because I understand now how dangerous that is to allow your ego to. But for me, it's very, the work that I'm doing, understanding that family is everything, understanding that it isn't about money, understanding that, just all of the things that I've learned over the last several years, it's very soul forward. And that's what I connect with. That's what is on the inside. That's what I project on the outside. And I try to keep the ego as far in check as I possibly can.
So then what was the turning point for you? You've sold the business. You've realized you have all the money, but still not quite fulfilled.
Yeah.
What was the turning point that led you to starting the podcast?
You know, it's funny. So I got sober back in 2016.
Can you tell us like the rock bottom that you hit that was like, it's
The
time for
turning
this
point?
to.
Yeah, I can. So I always had a relationship with alcohol. Alcohol and I were always very good friends from the time that I was 13. I remember taking my first drink and it felt like home to me. It felt like it numbed out all of the shit that had happened and I just didn't think about stuff. Good news, bad news, it numbed it out. Bad news is I continued to put myself in really damaging, traumatic situations because of that. So I always drank. And in construction, you're entertaining clients. It's a whole thing. Like I could keep up with the boys, like it was no problems. And I was the fun drunk, right?
And the hot one.
And exactly, the hot fun drunk.
You're winning.
Yeah, it's like we're going to strip clubs. Oh, I got drinks. It's totally fine. Everything's amazing. Like all of the stuff. Like that was my life for a long time. And I got to the place where my sister passed away very unexpectedly in 2015. And I had never had a relationship with my emotions. I very much was in touch with my masculine side for my entire life. Growing up, I was the third girl. I was more in tune with my brothers and just that whole side of things. Emotions looked messy to me. So when my sister passed away, it sent me off the rails. I had this whole truckload of grief I didn't know what to do with. I didn't know how to function. And so I spent the next 18 months of my life just drinking myself into oblivion. Still running my business, still functioning, still going and doing all the things, but not paying attention, not plugged into anything, just really not doing myself any favors. My husband and I were in a terrible spot during that time because it was just, he didn't know how to support me. How do you even support me?
Did he drink?
Oh yeah, he's a heavy drinker too, right? So at that point, it's like I'm just drinking myself into oblivion and not plugged into anything, just trying to hold things together. It was not going well because when you're not in touch with your emotions, it's so disassociating that you don't even know. I was on a business trip where I spent. There's a couple of trips in a row in October of 2016, and I can't even tell you how terrible it was. I mean, just drinking a bottle of wine for breakfast kind of shit. Oh, this is so great. Like whatever. Not at the business trip. That was the other one. But on the business trip, just drinking at the bar a bunch, getting wine at the airport and pouring it into coffee cups on the plane. And then instead of going home when I got home after not being home for a week, went to the casino, like drove drunk to the casino because I didn't want to go home. Like what kind of mom is that? Like it's pretty savage gross. And I got home from the casino and I don't remember going to the casino. I don't remember getting home from the casino. I drove both directions to that. And I just remember like my husband going, what the fuck when I got home? And I just didn't have anything else. My best friend had planted a seed several weeks before that about, if I was ever going to go to rehab, this is the place I would go. And she had done the research for a really nice rehab in Malibu because I'm a drunk, not a criminal. and so she just planted the seed. And I woke up that next morning and I just knew I couldn't do this anymore. I had spent the last couple of years, even before my sister passed away, thinking, okay, if you could just not drink for one day, right? I hadn't been happy with my drinking habits for a long time.
Wow.
But I didn't have control of it. I didn't have control of it for a long time. And so it was, I had a refrigerator in my office where I could just start drinking in the afternoon. Shit hits 4:00, no problems. I'm pouring roadies, like just all of the things that looking back now, I am disgusted by, but it is what it is. That's part of my story. But I drank myself into an oblivion and it just got to where it was like, I can't do this anymore for myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. When you look at yourself in the mirror and are just like, fuck. And all I would think is just don't drink today. But
if I could just do one day.
Just one day.
And then you
right?
can
Just
compound
one
on that.
day,
One more
right?
day.
Because the last couple of years that I was drinking, I didn't have any days off. It was literally Sundays are great. And if it was, like daylight saving times, awesome. I can start drinking at 10 instead of 11 because football starts and you have an excuse. I mean,
Did you have any health problems?
not really. Like my guts were not great, but that was definitely stress related because I just always, it was just pour the stress on, pour the booze on, and I didn't eat, right? If you're gonna eat and consume that many calories, I would be
pretty round.
Exactly. So it was like, well, which one do you want? It's like, well, the alcohol.
Liquid diet.
Exactly. So that, my brother always makes fun of me with like the bird seed. We'd sit down. He's like, here, birdie, here's some seed for you. Like, leave me alone. But yeah, I mean, it was.
So you went to Malibu then?
I went to Malibu. I went to Cliffside, and it was
How long were you there?
a month. And it was right around the holidays in 2016, and it was everything. I needed that so bad, and I didn't realize. I just thought I was drinking. I didn't realize that I was drinking to numb all the shit. Mm-hmm. And the rehab is not like, oh, we're just going to get you to quit drinking. It's like, no, let's figure out what's underneath there. Yeah. They were very holistic in their approach for stuff, and so it was like Reiki and breath work, and all of the things of tearing up trauma that happened when you're a little girl, and holding space for her, and so after I got sober, it started this kind of journey of first putting my life back together for all of the damage that I had done, but then figuring Anne out, because I had never done that. When you move out of your parents' house when you're 16 and you've dealt with all of this sexual trauma and other stuff up to that point and after that point, and then you start having babies on top of that. I mean, I look back at that and I can't even get my head around it. I was like 19 in a minute when I had my oldest daughter, and my first child
having a child.
Yeah, and my first husband was a complete piece of shit. No, nothing against him, but he was just a broken man too, right? And so it was like having another child because all he did was play video games and whatever. So I'm doing all of the things. I'm the one dancing backwards in high heels with getting kids to where they need to be, and working just as important of a job as he did, and just all of these things. It was a lot, and I look back and I have to give that version of Anne credit for just holding it together. Yeah. But I don't have to do that anymore. And
how old were your kids when you quit drinking?
So this was 9 years ago. My youngest would have been 9, and my oldest would have been 20. Okay. So my daughters, I have a middle daughter as well. So my daughters did not get a good version of me. They were teenagers, and I was not equipped to raise teenage girls. I was the fun mom. I was, here's money. I always, whatever you want to do here, and we'll take you on vacations and all of this stuff. But I was not plugged into what their emotional needs were. I wasn't plugged into what my emotional needs were. I look at emotional intelligence, and for me, that's my life's work now. It's what does it for me on 100 different levels, because you can master life like crazy if your EQ is up there. Most people do not have that. Most people have a middle schooler EQ, which is no judgment, right? I was there as well. But I wasn't able to really offer my kids anything. The cool part of that is I have really good relationships with both of my girls, and I'm able to help them heal from the trauma that I brought and handed down to them, because even though I wasn't like an abusive mom or any of that kind of stuff,
you're like, oh, I wasn't mom of the year.
Exactly.
I can recognize and own that.
Absolutely. 1,000%, right? I've bucked them up, because with Brittany, who's my oldest, she was very emotional, and I didn't know how to handle that because I wasn't in tune with my emotions. Right. And my middle daughter, I was like, rub some dirt on it, you're going to be fine. And so she followed a suit with what mine was, which was you just don't deal with emotions. You just push that shit down and put something on top of it, The good thing about my my son, who was 9 at the time, he got a front row seat to all of the healing. Age appropriate, obviously, but as I was learning about boundaries, as I was learning about just all of the different things, we went through that as a family, which is awesome, because now I have this family of 5, my husband and our 3 kids, of just completely healed or in the process of healing. It's amazing. My husband is unpacking his shit from childhood that he didn't realize he needed to kind of address. I think most people don't realize if you have trauma, like, oh, it's fine, everything's fine. It's like, no, it's not. You carry it around in your body. You carry it around like invisible weight. And if you haven't addressed it, your life could get so much better if you do just figure it out and set it down instead of just continuing to drag it around. So yeah, it's pretty neat, this family that we have cobbled together.
I'm proud to be part of the team at PS Studios, the top podcast production studio in the nation. We support creators and businesses just like this one, handling everything from launch to growth. If you want a podcast that actually moves the needle, visit psstudios.co. I hijacked the question of, okay, all of these things happen. How did you start this podcast? What was that aha moment?
Yes, I'm so sorry. We went all over the place. So 18 months ago, after doing all of this different work, all of these books, I had read this book by Michael Singer. He's the one who has The Untethered Soul, and he has another book called The Surrender Experiment. And it talks about him just surrendering to the universe of not having preferences, not having anything, just leaning into whatever your purpose is supposed to be. So about a year and a half ago, when I did this, okay, I'm just going to surrender to whatever I'm supposed to do, and just really being in tune with myself, right? So I say I'm spiritual, and I think God lives in all of us. I don't think God's some guy that lives on a magic cloud. I think we are all God, right? Exactly. Like he's in all of us. So if you're in tune with that and you just listen to your gut, I think you're guided in the directions that you're supposed to be, whatever is supposed to be the best, your highest and best use for the collective. And I'm driving to my office and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, fuck, I'm doing a podcast now. People had been telling me for years and years and years, because my life is outrageous, right? I have all of these different things and there's just crazy stories. And I'm this person who always cannonballs first and then figures it out after I've already jumped. And so there's just stories and stories and stories. I've lived lifetimes. And so people have always said, you need to write a book, you need to do a podcast, you need to whatever. And I'm driving to work and it just literally felt like a ton of bricks just hit me from the side of like the big guy telling me, you're doing a podcast. And so I got to the office and I told Casey, I'm like, will you please figure it out? I guess we're doing a podcast now. And so we were sitting down. I know. So that's just how I am. I just cannonball, same thing with the book. It's like a year ago, I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm doing a book now. Because I just do. I'm in tune.
So you're like the perfect surrender.
I am.
Experiment.
I'm the perfect surrender because it's like, I don't know what's supposed to come of it. I do believe I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I look at the stuff with the podcast. It is the number one feeling because what fills and fuels my soul is what also has the biggest impact on other people. And as I watch that happen, there's nothing more important to me.
So now I know you're not religious, but you are spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel like faith has guided you through the emotional work of being able to hold space for the people's stories that you're hearing and you're going through on your podcast?
Yeah. It's wild because I had been in this place where as I was doing this work over the last 8 or 9 years, it felt like I was on a mission, even though I didn't know what the mission was. And it was like just to get everything inside of my all the gunk and everything just cleaned out so that I could hold space for other people. And I didn't know why. I went and did ayahuasca a couple years ago. And I told the guy, like, I feel like I'm supposed to be holding space for other people, but I feel like I'm still blocked in something, right? So it literally felt like what I'm doing on the podcast, I had been preparing myself for
almost a decade.
Yeah. It's like, how does that even compute to you, right? You surrender and then it brings you into something that you've been literally preparing for. So yes, just clearing everything out so that I can be super in tune with myself and have all of my gunk. And it's not that stuff doesn't come up that you're still healing, but for the most part, like I've been pretty savage with my approach to digging out the garbage and pulling it up and addressing it. But yes, getting to this place on the podcast where I've done all the things, right? I've touched all the burners on the stove and I'm not afraid to talk about the messy stuff. It's like, yeah, I did that. Yes, that happened. Yes, that was messy AF. I'm not shy about it. I don't give a fuck what other people think. I think that people are able to relate to it and say like, God, my life was messy like that too. Whatever it looked like, right? Like people that are out there trying to put on these masks and the filters and the highlighted reels about this curated life that they have and their kids are eating kale chips and they never cry and like all the things. I'm like, oh my God, it's like that. Whose real life is that?
Behind the scenes, they've got to be having mental breakdowns.
Exactly.
Like, no,
they're in the pantry eating real chips.
Exactly. So, to answer your question, yes, I was doing all of this stuff just to get to the place where when you surrender, it's like, okay, it looks like you're ready for this. I literally don't know. If I go out of here right now and the big guy tells me something and it feels like truth to me, because that's what that feels like.
Yeah.
To me, when you're in tune with yourself, you're not second guessing like, where is that voice from? When you're connected to your knowing, to your nectar, to the big guy, right? Like when you are and it comes to you in a meditation or in a prayer and a download, whatever it is, it's like, fuck, I'm doing that now, So being able to do that and say, I am ready. I have done all of these steps to clean out the gunk, to be able to hold space for people. And I hold space like a mother because I know how important it is to be able to do that for other people where they don't feel like you're judging them or, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we support women, we support whatever. And then you watch what they're doing behind the scenes. It's like, don't say that. You can't claim that when you're being an asshole behind the scenes or gossiping or being gross. It's like, no, hold space for women. They don't need other people to tell them they're doing something wrong. And when I come from this place of, look, I really fucked my kids up. Thank God I'm fucking,
figuring it out
or correcting or trying to hold space for them now. Because holding space for grown women who want to scream at you for the stuff that you did wrong, that's savage.
It is.
That's savage to do that. That's the hardest work I've had to do is being able to hold space for my daughters for trauma I've inflicted. Exactly. Right. So I've literally been preparing for this, what feels like my entire life. And it feels great. It feels great to have people that say, this impacted me. This made a difference for me. I wouldn't have been able to take this step if I hadn't heard you say whatever that is. And so if me being, on my podcast saying outrageous things and sharing with everyone, the inside of what's
going on.
I know. It's like, And, and then the book, it's like I was telling somebody when I handed out the book, it's like, it doesn't get more vulnerable than that. It's one thing to be on the podcast and share your story, right? For me to share my story, it's like, this is what it is. I made mistakes. I did things right, all of the things. But to share your ideas with other people and how your mind works, it doesn't.
And in a written format, no less.
In a written format, it doesn't get more vulnerable.
So be super honest. You've done all of this work. Nobody just snaps out of who they once were without sometimes regressing back. Where are 3 areas that you find yourself having to pull yourself back into this version of Anne versus the old version of Anne?
Boundaries are hard for me when it comes to my kids specifically, because my daughters want to push. They want to push back. And so I find that the boundaries is one of them. Overstepping my bounds. I'm a good lane swerver. I'm like,
give us an example.
If I feel like I can do it better than somebody else's, which is all the time, which is terrible. I know it's so terrible. It really is. I feel bad even saying it, but I'm like, you look like you're struggling. Let me get over there. But when I realize that a yes to them is a no to me, right? And really the either or thing is hard. An example, I don't know. There's so many.
You have to give us one.
All right. When my husband is doing something, and God bless you, but he is not great at a lot of things that I'm really great at. And it doesn't do me any favors to be like, oh, let me just take that for you. He has this boat situation where he's, sold one, or he was supposed to sell a boat. Anyways, he has 2 boats now. He doesn't need 2 boats. He's supposed to be selling the other one. And I want to come and jump in that so bad, because I would have it sold and moved off the property in a minute.
In a minute.
Right? Just in a minute. This has been dragging on for like a year.
Is he too emotionally attached to the boat?
No, he's not an executor, right? He's the ideas guy. He's the guy whose brain works. And so I have to just not even look
that direction
because I just want to take things from people. I'm like, oh my God, give that here, darling.
I'll just get it done for you.
I'm like, let me just do that. So for me, that's a big
a Kendall right there.
It is.
100%.
I'll just sell the boat. I'm
the same way. But the problem with doing that is then you don't realize you're taking your own Skittles, right? You're wasting him on something that's not yours. You're actually then also robbing him from the ability to do it for himself.
Totally learn and do it.
Right, exactly. And so for me, I've spent my whole entire life doing that, where I'm like, just give that to me. But then I have this, all of this weight on my shoulders, and it's, I can just do everything, which is great, except that I'm not taking care of myself. And so I have to be very careful about making certain that I'm taking care of all of the things that keep my Skittles full, so that I can, give from abundance and from overflow to other people. So the boundaries, the staying in your lane.
What's our third one?
God, telling people their business. I mean,
what do you mean?
I want to just tell everybody their business, and I can't.
Give us another example.
Okay, so if you're watching somebody do something and you know what they're doing, right? So I've spent literally 9 years of my life working on myself.
Yes.
My EQ is savage, like savage. So I can watch in a situation where I'm watching somebody interact with somebody else, and you can just watch it melt down, whatever it is, right? This person's feelings are hurt and they're snapping from this place.
I would love to see you on watching
the sidelines,
a date, or someone get into a fight at a restaurant.
Oh my God!
Can we do dinner night and we'll just go watch first dates?
Yes, it exactly right. So I want to come and tell you, don't do that, but you have to touch the stove yourself, right? If you didn't come to me and ask me, like, Anne, what's your perspective on this? Especially people at my table of life are like, would you mind and get back in your own fucking lane? Because I'm like, hey, do you know that when you're doing that right there, this is not going to end well? Well, great. You still are going to have to touch your own stove. And so if it's somebody that's dating something, right? My brother was dating this guy. He was horrible for him. Horrible for him. I can't say that. I didn't say that one time. I welcomed him to Thanksgiving dinner, had him come in as I'm watching, as this is like,
he's got to figure it out on his own.
He's got to figure it out on his own, but I can watch as it happens. And so now it's just like me with popcorn. I'm like,
I'll take a front row seat.
Exactly. Because now I understand. When you understand all of the emotions that go into it, because everyone has all of these triggers and they come back from these places. For me, I've never had more fun in my entire life than watching these kind of situations. People just, it's like middle school.
I've literally had life situations since I've met you, and I was like, gosh, I wish I could just call Anne and see what she would do.
Yeah. Please do.
Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, you have my phone number.
I'm not trying to put stuff on your shoulders, because I like the perspective.
What would Anne do?
Yeah, seriously. Because I've read the book. I've obviously heard all the podcast episodes. I'm like, I'm
Yeah. No, you call me. You call me because it's actually really fun for me when people ask me because
then you finally do get to like
then I'm
use
like,
that
oh my God.
skill.
Exactly. Because I don't want to come out of my lane. It's not my place to be able to do that. Doesn't mean I don't. I try not to do that. Because the people in my life that have a front row seat at my table, they don't need all that shit. They listen to TED Talk out of my mouth all the time. You know, people are always like,
they're like, stop fixing me.
Yeah, it's like, do your friends and family listen to the podcast? I'm like, they get the live version all the fucking time. Like, no, they do not need to listen to the podcast.
They get the non-published version.
Exactly. You know, but yes, no, call me please, because it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch if you realize like men that have daddy issues and they're trying to like appease a ghost that's not there anymore because they haven't worked through that. It screams, you know, or people's energy when they get frustrated about stuff and they don't even know, like I can feel the energy shift in people. And so it's just, it's fun on a whole different level.
So the key is invite Anne to enter your life.
Yes.
Well, mine's like work questions that I'm like, you've obviously grown and scaled a business. And then if I'm dealing with something really tough, which lately it's like every week there's a new thing, which is life. I know I'm not special in that. Like sometimes you just want somebody else's like outside perspective who's like not living the situation, but has probably lived a version, and maybe did it wrong or maybe did it really well.
Sure,
you know,
and it's willing to be vulnerable enough and honest to say,
be honest about it.
Absolutely, be like, you know what, I stepped in that pile of dog shit too, and here's how I did wrong. And if I was had the opportunity to do it again, maybe I would do it this way.
Maybe I can switch it.
I would literally be honored to share that information with you and with anybody, because it's like I didn't do things perfectly. I am not the type of person that sits and overthinks things before I go, because I think time is, time is money. It's like
I love that.
Yes, I don't have time to do that. And that doesn't mean everything that I do is going to be a home run. I'm going to learn from it, right?
I always say progress over perfection. I've lived that way my whole life, and my husband is all perfection, and then we'll get some progress, like very, very slowly, and it drives me nuts. But I also understand that that's how he's wired.
Yeah, don't.
And I cannot rewire him, right? But I'm always telling him, I'm like, I am not a perfect person. I don't aim to be perfect. Right. If you can accept me as the imperfect thing that I am, who is cool just being myself, I don't need to be whatever you think I should be.
Sure.
Then you need to be able to do that in your business life too, right? Because like these perfect circumstances never will be about. They will never come.
They never do. And if you stall out too long thinking about all of the different scenarios and like, you run 20 scenarios and then you go actually do the thing and it wasn't any of those scenarios anyways. What a waste of Skittles.
What a waste of time
It is. So it's like, no, like whatever your gut says, pull the trigger, do the thing, whatever.
Keep it
moving. Keep the chips, let the chips fall where they may. And it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but keep it moving.
Okay, so say somebody you're witnessing is really trying to control the other person. Maybe it's control an employee. Maybe it's control a partner. How do you help somebody break through that need to be in the driver's seat?
I think you just have to point out to people in a really powerful way where you're giving them analogies or different visuals that they don't have control over anything. When you really realize that, right? If you have control freaks that think like, oh my God, I didn't do this or it didn't go this way or whatever. It's like you're causing your own suffering in that situation over something that none of us have control over life. You have control over your choices, but that's it. You don't have control over anything else. You don't have control over what other people do. And again, I sit and watch that from the sidelines and don't say anything until people ask me, which again is super funny because I have people in my life that are control freaks. And I just chuckle, like in my spirit, I just chuckle because I used to be one too.
Yeah, I mean, most high achieving people, I think, had that like characteristic.
Yeah, I used to think that, and now I just don't. And it's the best life. I'm living my best life because I couldn't give a fuck less. It's like, what's going to happen? I don't know. Let's see.
Let's find out.
Yeah, let's find out. So, just pointing out to them that they don't have control and think about, okay, you can either have this or you can have this. When you give people this either or, I think that's a really powerful thing. When I say something like a yes to someone else is a no to you. And when you realize that, that was one of the things Casey and I talked about. When you realize you can have this perceived control over something, or you can have peace. And control freaks generally don't know what peace is, right? And so when you're like, think about, and you can give them an example of like what a Sunday morning is, or, something where whatever brings them the most joy and peace, you could have that all the time. And it's like, it blows their mind. You could have that whenever you want to. That peace lives inside of you. You get to decide. Now, if I'm going to say, my controlling on if Kendall is going to do this or do that, or it's only going to make me happy if it works out this way or that way, it's like, I'm setting myself up for failure by having expectations of someone else that's outside of my control anyways. And then I'm going to wonder why I'm miserable. don't wonder, look at the fucking ingredients in that recipe. Like, of course you're going to be miserable. You're setting yourself up for that, so you really have to like be able to get to people from a bigger perspective, like the bigger umbrella of you don't have control over anything. So you can sit there and try to swing at the air if you want to, like, great, good job. You're amazing, crushing it. But you don't have control over anything. So you just have to kind of point it out on a bigger scale instead of just little things. So if you say little things, people get defensive. You can't do that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. I think that's part of why, like, for the book, it's like, I'm not coming from a place of calling anybody out. These are all things that I went through too, but I'm looking at it from the other side of it going, oh, that's silly. I never did have control. What a fucking waste that I spent all of this time suffering over something that I wasn't going to be able to change or have the outcome, have control over the outcome anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. When I had read your book, I kept hearing you reading it to me.
Same.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just words on a page. It was like, nope, Anne is literally just in my ear,
Yeah.
page after page after page. And I could hear you saying it. I could hear you laughing at certain parts.
Yes.
And it's like, I could just visually see you reading me the book.
Yeah. Which is awesome, because again, it comes from this place of, I just want everybody to be able to live their best life. Because I think, Kendall, if you're doing what is your higher purpose and what makes you happy, I feel like that's the best thing for the collective. Same thing for you, right? If you're feeding whatever your highest purpose is, whatever that looks like, that's the best thing for the collective. What I'm doing is that, so it's like, if we can each get to this place of being able to level up and take care of ourselves, it's better for everybody. We live in a better world,
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we stripped away all of the titles and roles that you have, podcast host, producer, creator, author,
Construction extraordinaire,
sold a company, scaled, sold, mom, what would you say who you are, like what embodies you at your core?
It's funny that you say that. Just Anne. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know who that little girl was for a long time. And there was a lot of broken pieces. And so I'm not any of those things. Yes, I am, right? Because I can do all of that. And I can do whatever the fuck I want. That's the beauty of it. But I'm just Anne. That's what embodies it for me. Like, I go back to that little, pre-loss of innocence girl. And I think about the magic and the shit that she put out there, because she was always the one that wanted people to smile, and just not from a people-pleasing role. I just have all of this energy. I come in like a wrecking ball. Every room I walk into, I'm like, oh my God, hi you guys. I just have all of this energy. I hit the ground running like that in the morning, which makes me chuckle as well.
Your husband's like,
I know he is. I mean, I get my music on and I'm like, yes, dancing around. Just Anne, right? That's what embodies it for me, is just exactly what feels like truth to me. That's all it is. And then just letting my soul and the big guy lead me around to wherever I'm supposed to be of the best, highest use, for whatever his plan is. It has nothing to do with me. The podcast has nothing to do with me. I do things that make me beyond uncomfortable all the time, every day. I think that's where we grow. I think that's where we're supposed to be doing things. So it isn't any of those titles. It isn't any other qualities. It's literally just like, what is the essence of Anne, who I am, who my soul is, who I'm supposed to be. That's, obviously it would be different for everybody. So there's not really anything I can say about the qualities of whatever that is, but just really being in tune with who I am and then doing what feels good for me and right for me.
I love that. I think it's time this is our fun. Every person who's on the show, we ask them to leave a question for the next guest. They don't know who the next guest will be.
All right. So here I am. My question for you is, after you get everything you want, what's next? What matters after you get everything you want?
So this is great. This ties into exactly what I was just saying. Just being of service, right? Being of service. That's the only thing that matters to me. And it doesn't matter if it makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't matter if it costs me everything I have. It doesn't matter if any of the things. That's what matters to me, is being of service to wherever I'm supposed to be of service.
And our final question is, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom means freedom. It's wild, because I always thought, if you had asked me at any other time in my life, money is freedom. Money is freedom. And freedom is freedom. Freedom is not being twisted up in any of these constructs that we are, right? People think like, okay, if you plug into politics or religion or, the gender game or like any of the things, not plugging into any of those, right? Like when I talk about being in tune with Anne and having nothing else matter besides that, it's better for everybody. It sounds super selfish, right? When I switched this game and thought, God, this feels so wrong to be coming, from this place about,
Me.
putting me first, right? Because that's what it feels like. But that's what you're supposed to do for your soul. Just get in touch with the big guy and then do, lead from that place, come from that place. So freedom is just freedom, right? It's like, it's not being twisted up in anything. It's not listening to what other people say. It's not going on a mission based on what somebody else thinks is right or not right. It's, what does Anne want to do today, right? That's freedom for me. And it isn't about money. I think people get twisted up because they think it is about money. And it's like, you can do this at any level. Yes, we all have to adult. Yes, we all have to pay bills and do those things, right? But then figuring out like what really sparks my soul and being able to have the balls to do that, because it's scary when you're out there doing the things. But that's freedom to me, is being able to say, okay, what does that look like for me today? What does Anne want to do today? What's going to make Anne happy today?
So you had said, though, before, had we asked you this 10, 12 years ago, it would have been money.
It would have been money even more recently than that.
So I think so many people feel that way.
Yeah.
Give the listeners a way to debunk that once and for all, because I truly believe that that's not true freedom either.
Yeah. The way to debunk that is look around at people that have money, right? Does that look like peace to you? Not generally, right? Look at how miserable those people are. And if you think them out there putting this beautiful curated life on there with their fancy cars and their all of the shit, that's not freedom, right? They're being a slave to money, right? To like, what does that look like? And
To
the
status,
materialistic.
ego.
right, and to like feeding their ego for stuff. That doesn't look like freedom. Does that look like freedom to anybody else? That doesn't look like freedom to me. Freedom to me is, this is my time. This is my day. This is my life. What am I going to do with this? What makes me happy? It doesn't have to be about money, right? To me, the happiest things that I do is go for a walk outside without having to be obligated to anyone else, right? Or spending time with friends and laughing. There doesn't have to be money associated with that. Like, that's freedom. Doing things that set your soul on fire. That's freedom. Not, I want to make more money so that I can drive a fancier car to throw Skittles out the window of.
Yeah.
Grow up. You know what I mean? Money is a fake construct. When people realize that, it's like we've been sold this, you have to keep moving, you have to keep trying. But somebody keeps moving the goalpost,
Yeah,
That's
if you have $5 million or if you have $100 million,
course.
is your life really that different?
Exactly. It isn't. And here's the thing that pisses me off about that. I got to where I was comfortable a long time ago, but I had that money equals freedom. And so I just kept going more.
And you made yourself more miserable in the process.
I totally did. I was a slave to money. I was a slave to feeding my own ego when it comes to that. So no, money is not where it's at. Figuring out how to be at peace with yourself and who you are, that's freedom.
I love it. Okay, and where can everybody find you?
Okay, so on the podcast website is letsgetnakedpodcast.com. You can find the book information there, the Life Hack Playbook, which is completely awesome. It's already changing the world. It's going to blow your doors off, because I think it's this personal improvement for people that aren't into that. I tell people it's like the marijuana of self-improvement. It's like the gateway drug, because it's like, oh, come on, just have a little bit
of fun.
have a little bit, and then it'll just blow your doors off because you realize how easy it is. And then I have a website, which my brothers and my family bust my balls about all the time. So AnneKarber.com. So you can find me on any of those outlets. So
Thank you for sharing all of this wisdom with us, Anne. You are the perfect person to share the behind the success and be so honest about it.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, that's a wrap.